In ancient Rome, prison was not designed for rehabilitation or long-term confinement. It existed as a place of fear, waiting, and suffering. Roman prisons were holding spaces where the accused awaited judgment, punishment, or execution. The system relied on terror to maintain order rather than correction or mercy. Before diving into these lost stories, if you enjoy the content, please consider liking and subscribing, and comment down below where you are listening in from. I find it fascinating that we are exploring the same ancient stories together, despite being from different parts of the world. Roman law emphasized public punishment over incarceration. Citizens feared prison not because of long sentences, but because of what awaited inside and what followed after. Arrest alone could mean death. The prison was a gateway to humiliation, torture, or execution. The earliest Roman prison was the Tullianum, also known as the Mamertine prison. It stood near the Roman Forum, close to the heart of political life. This proximity was intentional. Justice was meant to be visible. Power was meant to be felt. The prison existed as a reminder that authority watched constantly. The Tullianum was underground. Prisoners descended into darkness, cut off from light, air, and hope. The lowest chamber was a pit accessed through a hole in the ceiling. Prisoners were lowered by rope. Once inside, escape was impossible. The walls were damp, the air was foul, disease spread quickly. Many prisoners died before trial. Conditions inside Roman prisons were intentionally brutal. There was no separation between accused and condemned. Innocence provided no comfort. Chains restricted movement. Food was scarce. Water was often contaminated. Guards showed little mercy. Bribery could improve conditions, but only for the wealthy. The Roman state did not provide meals. Prisoners relied on family or friends for survival. Those without support starved. Hunger weakened the body. Disease followed. Survival depended on outside help or quick execution. Prisoners were often chained to walls or floors. Iron collars prevented rest. Sleep was rare. Noise echoed constantly. Screams from torture chambers reached every cell. Fear became constant. Roman prisons served different functions depending on status. Citizens accused of crimes might be held briefly. Legal protections varied by class. A senator might await trial under guard at home. A slave would rot in chains. Interrogation involved coercion. Torture was accepted as a legal tool, especially for slaves. Pain was used to extract confessions. Truth mattered less than obedience. Once tortured few survived unbroken. The prison system supported public spectacle. Prisoners awaited execution by crucifixion, burning, or exposure to animals. The delay intensified suffering. Hope faded slowly. Prisons also held political enemies. During times of instability, emperors used prisons to eliminate rivals quietly. Accusations of treason filled cells. Trials were swift or non-existent. Guilt was assumed. Roman governors maintained local prisons across the empire. Conditions varied, but cruelty remained consistent. Remote provinces often used harsher methods. Oversight was minimal. Abuse common. Prisoners were marked socially. Arrest meant disgrace. Families suffered shame. Property could be seized. Even release did not erase suspicion. Reputation died in prison. The fear of prison shaped Roman behavior. Citizens avoided authority. Obedience became survival. The threat of imprisonment controlled populations more effectively than laws alone. Women faced additional dangers. Female prisoners were vulnerable to abuse. Guards exploited power. Legal recourse was non-existent. Silence was survival. Slaves imprisoned for discipline faced extreme cruelty. Masters used prisons as tools of control. Torture reinforced ownership. Humanity was denied. Debt imprisonment was common. Those unable to pay could be confined. Conditions pressured families to settle debts quickly. The prison became a financial weapon. The lack of standardized sentencing created unpredictability. No one knew how long confinement would last. Time lost meaning. Fear replaced certainty. Disease flourished inside prisons. Poor sanitation spread infections. Death was frequent. Bodies were removed quietly. Prison records were minimal. Executions often followed imprisonment quickly. Prisoners were paraded through streets to the place of death. Humiliation preceded punishment. The crowd watched. Some prisoners were held for months, awaiting execution during festival games. Their suffering extended for entertainment. Anticipation heightened fear. Political purges filled prisons during unstable reigns. Informants accused neighbors. Fear poisoned society. Trust vanished. The prison system reinforced hierarchy. Wealth bought comfort. Poverty ensured suffering. Justice was unequal. The symbolism of the prison mattered as much as its function. Darkness represented state power. Silence represented submission. Chains represented order. Roman literature referenced prisons as places of horror. Writers used imprisonment to evoke dread. The image was understood universally. Release from prison was rare and often conditional. Those freed remained under suspicion. Freedom was fragile. The prison was not a place of law, but of waiting. Waiting for pain, waiting for judgment, waiting for death. Beyond Rome, the prison system adapted to local customs but retained its core purpose. In frontier regions, prisoners were held in military forts. Conditions were harsh. Soldiers acted as guards. Discipline ruled. Captured enemies were imprisoned before execution or enslavement. Survival depended on value. Skilled individuals might be sold, others died. Prisons were used during tax enforcement. Defaulters were confined until payment. Families sold property to secure release. The system fed corruption. Night in prison intensified fear. Darkness hid violence. Guards acted freely. Screams went unheard. Isolation deepened despair. The psychological impact of imprisonment was profound. Prisoners lost identity, names replaced by numbers or charges. Dehumanization was intentional. Some prisoners attempted suicide. Escape was impossible. Death seemed preferable. Roman law allowed indefinite detention. Appeals were rare. Authority was absolute. The prison served as a tool of imperial messaging. Arrests sent signals. Punishment demonstrated control. Order was maintained through fear. The poor suffered most. Without advocates, they vanished. Records erased them. History forgot them. Religion offered little comfort. Temples did not intervene. Gods were distant. Justice belonged to men. During crises, prisons overflowed. Overcrowding worsened conditions. Disease spread faster. Death toll rose. Mass arrests followed rebellions. Entire communities were imprisoned. Collective punishment was common. Prison labor existed but was secondary. Forced labor followed conviction, not confinement. The prison prepared bodies for exploitation. Children could be imprisoned with parents. Families suffered together. Innocence offered no protection. Roman prisons lacked reform. There was no intent to correct behavior. Punishment deterred through terror alone. Prison architecture reflected philosophy. Narrow spaces, limited movement, darkness, disoriented. Control was total. Executions near prisons reinforced fear. The transition from cell to scaffold was visible. The soundscape of prisons was constant. Chains rattled, guards shouted, prisoners cried. Silence was rare. Some emperors used imprisonment as punishment itself. Extended confinement replaced execution. Suffering replaced death. Political prisoners endured isolation. Communication was limited. Forgetting was a form of punishment. Corruption flourished. Guards sold favors. Access to food, air, light depended on payment. The prison system reflected Roman values. Power hierarchy, dominance, mercy was weakness. Fear of imprisonment shaped daily life. Citizens avoided conflict. Authority ruled behavior. Prisons remained unchanged for centuries. Tradition preserved cruelty. Reform was unnecessary in Roman eyes. The collapse of the empire did not immediately end the system. Successor states adopted similar methods. Archaeological remains reveal cramped cells, chains, graffiti scratched by prisoners. Evidence of despair survives. The Roman prison was not hidden. It stood near power centers. Visibility amplified fear. The system succeeded in control. Order was maintained through terror. Compliance ensured survival. The prison was a mirror of Roman society. Hierarchical, brutal, efficient. For the average citizen, prison represented the end. Hope faded behind stone walls. The terror was effective. Few challenged authority openly. The cost was too high. Roman prisons were not mistakes. They were intentional instruments of rule. They terrified citizens because terror was the point.